Hi everybody, I'm making this video for my art and design class, the 2D design, Art 121, and I'm also going to share this video with my art appreciation students. This is a screencast about unity and variety, that first principle of design. I want to explain what unity and variety is. So there are two things in balance with one another. Unity is about similarities, things that are alike one another, and variety is about dissimilarities. We want to have these two things in balance with one another when we make design, or we want to notice these two things in balance with one another when we view works of art. We'll look at unity first. There are three ways to achieve unity. One is through repetition of elements. The other one is through the alignment of those elements. And the third way is through the grouping of those elements. So we want to have these things in balance. If an image is too unified, it's boring. It's visually boring. And if an image is too varied, it can look chaotic. So let's use this checkerboard pattern here. It's functional, but because it lacks any variety, it's not a very compelling design. So this isn't a function, or this is an example of something that's too unified. Let's look at this photograph here and think about how this is unified. Repeated elements are one way to create unity, and let's look at shape. You'll notice that this photograph, while it is a photograph of figures kind of grouped around a piano, it's essentially, formally or abstractly, it's the repetition of triangles. First, we see this triangle here, which is quite dominant, right? And then we'll notice other triangles. For instance, the triangle between the body here and the arm. There's another triangle here as well. There's an upside down triangle over there. There's a triangle on its side here. We can see another triangle, kind of an open triangle there. But we see the repetition of those triangles. That's what makes this photograph so unified. Another way to achieve unity is through the alignment of elements. This is a painting by Caravaggio, who was a Baroque master, 17th century painter in Italy. And here we have figures seated at a table, and there's a lot of diversity in the image. I mean, there are all kinds of different things, the figures. Some are sitting, one is standing, there are different things going on, but what brings this all together is the alignment of the edges and shapes that make up these figures. So first off, we notice that this figure here extends his arm out into the viewer's space and off the canvas. We follow that contour over his shoulder, through his head, and he reaches out and makes almost physical contact with this figure here in the center, figure of Christ. We follow the contour through Christ, and his hand overlaps this figure, and that leads our eye through this figure, and he overlaps that figure. So these four figures are aligned to sweep us across the image in this way. In the same way, we see the edge of the tablecloth here. It's a real high contrast because it's a bright white against a dark background, and we see how this edge lines up with the arm of this chair over here. And we also see how this edge lines up with this bit of white cloth over here. And we see that this carries us across the page in this horizontal movement as well. So these very diverse shapes and forms are all collected together and aligned in such a way to direct our attention across here. So this is unity by alignment. The third way is unity by grouping. And we can look at this sculpture by Walter McConnell, and it's actually not, although it is one work of art, it's actually comprised of many slip cast ceramic pieces. And so all of these different things, these I guess I don't know, these somewhat they're portrait busts and all various kinds of things in here, but they're all grouped together. They're all assembled to create this one kind of triangular form, or actually, since it's three dimensional, we should talk about it. It's kind of funnel shaped, right? So all of those very diverse elements are collected and grouped in a way to create unity. Now, unity is often complex. It's usually not as simple as that. I've laid out those three examples, but those were images that were presented, in a very simple way. More commonly, it's not that it's unified by one of those things, it's unified by all three. That is, an image is unified by the repetition of shape or of something. It's also unified by the alignment of elements, and then it's also unified by the grouping of elements. This is a painting by Peter Paul Rubens, who's a Baroque master, and this is Prometheus Bound. That's the title of this image. And see, we have a figure of Prometheus, and he is nude, and he is aligned diagonally on the image, through the image like this. So one of the first ways that this image, this painting is unified is through alignment, because this diagonal positioning of the body here aligns with the diagonal positioning of the eagle, who has come down to chew out his liver, right? This is a Greek myth, by the way. And so we have that alignment. It's also aligned with the kind of the orientation and the placement of the rocky cliff that he's chained upon. And it's also somewhat similar to the movement of the tree branches up here. So those four things together are aligned in such a way that there's a similarity between them. So it's unified through alignment. Now, it's also unified through grouping, because the lightest values of the whole painting, and this works even better if you squint your eyes a little bit at what you're seeing, you'll see that the lightest values are all in here, really where the action is taking place. And surrounding that is a lot of dark value. So that kind of focuses our attention here, and that helps to unify it as well. Now, third, it's unified through the repetition of shape. And this is subtle, it's not so obvious, but all of the curvilinear shapes and contours that make up the body of Prometheus, right? The musculature and the anatomy of Prometheus are similar to the curvilinear forms in the landscape, and even some of the curvilinear forms on the eagle itself. So it's unified in three ways: through the repetition of shape, through the alignment of elements, and then through the grouping of value. Let's skip to this one and look at variety here. In this painting by Kehinde Wiley, entitled Venus at Paphos, and this is a contemporary painting here. Variety mainly occurs through the contrast of really bright and bold colors, right? We see this kind of cyan, this blue color is really in contrast to the yellow and the yellow-green, which again is really in contrast to the bright red. So these strong, bold colors certainly help to make variety in the image. For comparison, if I go back here, these colors here are a little more unified. They're more close together, right? Because so many of the colors are more subdued. They have a lower chroma. They don't stand out from one another. We don't notice the difference as much. So certainly color is the main way that this image is varied. But also there's the intricacies of the patterns, because we have three different kinds of patterns here. We have the geometric pattern of the stripes in the dress, and then we have the patterns of the leaves and the patterns of the flower petals, or whatever those things are. And so variety has to do with contrast, with differences.